Hello everyone, this is Fireside Chess coming back to you with another YouTube video. And today we are going to be learning about the Stafford Gambit. However, first I do want to address my lack of uploads as of recently, just mostly because of school. I've been getting a ton of work lately, and I have a little bit of a side job, but not really a side job. But anyway, now that it's the summer, my upload schedule is going to be going back to normal, alright? Nice. Okay, now without further ado, let's get started on learning about the Stafford Gambit. Okay, so the Stafford Gambit is like an e4 or e5 opening, and with this study I will be using, I'll just be reading these little blurbs of text and explaining these moves further. So the first move is e4, and the introduction says, "Hi everyone, I've created this study both for people who wish to try the Stafford Gambit as black, and for people who want to learn how to respond against this properly." So the Stafford Gambit is a gambit for black, obviously it just said that, and this will also help you to play against it as white. I'm not going to be going through all 23 chapters of it, but I'll be going through the first one, the overview. This is just the general one, and if you want me to go into depth with the rest of the chapters, then just leave a comment, alright? Nice. Okay, so the next paragraph, it says, "Be aware that though this opening is objectively unsound, there are several ways to counter it with white and to get a significant advantage." So there is a good chance that where if white plays it, black will win a ton of material, but it's not that good of an opening, so white will also have many opportunities to counter it. Okay, so let's see. e4, e5, as it said, the Stafford Gambit is a e4, e5 that can occur in the Russian game or the Petrovs. Knight to f3, knight to f6, this is basically just the Petrov's defense. White will take on e5, and here the main response is to drive the knight away, then recapture the pawn that is on e4. And there are different options, like playing c4. Bishop to c4 can lead to a reverse type of Stafford's Gambit, which is like really wonky. Or after this, knight takes on c3, d takes on c3. So this is like a reverse Stafford's Gambit because normally this should be on black side. And this is a little bit better than normal because this is a bit better than the normal Stafford Gambit because white has an extra tempi. And a tempi is just the fancy way that chess players call, basically like an extra turn. You make the opponent waste a move, and you never want to be wasting moves. But going back to the main line, after knight to e5, knight to c6. Black offers an exchange of knights. This trade is very favorable for white, as it will damage black's structure and give it time to defend the e4 pawn. Therefore, black is sacrificing a pawn, and exchange will benefit from the open diagonals for the bishops, because since bishops move diagonally, open diagonals make them insanely powerful. And there will be a semi-open file for the queen. So it's like not really open, but there's not like a ton of pieces on that file. So the queen and rooks will benefit from that. But if white plays this accurately, it is possible that black can just get completely messed up if he plays this wrong and if white plays it properly. And now with knight to c6, white is accepting the gambit. And as it says here, this move accepts the gambit. White is technically better, and black's objective is to now try to trick white into blundering a piece. And there are different options other than c6. We have knight to c3. This is just a bad move. This goes into the Halloween Gambit, which is a very obscure gambit. It can be like sort of a surprise attack on an opponent, but it's not really recommended that you play it, so I'll just leave it at that. There's also just moving back to f3. White can refuse the gambit with either knight back to f3 or by playing pawn to d4. Both are pretty poor decisions in the theory, since this gambit is pretty dubious for black, but it can still happen. But then this position will just end up reverting to a normal Petrov's position. Stafford players would be well advised to know these lines as well. So after f3, you have knight to e4, knight to c3, knight takes c3, d takes c3, or there's just simply d4. But returning to the main line, after knight to c6, we have d to c6, and you see the bishop has a nice open file. The knight can head literally anywhere. It also has a semi-open diagonal right here, semi-open files as we said earlier, and also for the rook, semi-open files. The knights are free. Just everything is good here. Taking with the d-pawn is better. Oh yeah, and also you'll notice here that we had a position like this for white back when we had that reverse Stafford's Gambit, so that's what I meant. And then with taking d is better, it does open the light square bishop and a semi-open file for the queen. There was another option to take, which was b takes on c6. This is it's just worse. There's not really much to say about it. And now, okay, so after the main line, d takes c3, d3. d3 is the normal response to a Stafford. Black has many different traps and ideas depending on how white will decide to play and set up his pieces, but it's fairly easy to fall into any of black's tricks if white isn't well prepared. So as I was saying earlier, the Stafford is like not a very sound opening to play in like serious tournaments, but if you're playing it in like bullet or blitz, so like very quick games where there's not a lot of time to think, or just like a casual game, then it's really fun. And we'll see here the alternate lines. So we have e5, knight to e4, d4, and there was also d3. That's just like a mistake. And then bishop to c5. This is like a Joyco piano, but for what black gets the chance to attack. f3 is just a surprisingly viable way of fighting the Stafford. So basically, like, you don't think it'll work, but it just somehow ends up working out. And the other options, knight to c3, bishop to c5, pawn to h3. These are very important moves, and the knight moving to g4 has to be prevented at all costs to prevent that nasty attack from happening. But again, returning to the main line, we have d3, bishop to c5. You see, trying to attack the f-pawn again. Bishop to e2, so we can try to come out here, and also blocking the bishop from coming to g4. And b2 seems very natural. It develops the bishop while guarding the g4 square. So that's all to be said about bishop to e2. And again, we'll go through the other lines. With h3, it's technically playable. You can make it through this position, but it allows for a double sacrifice, which then leads to an unpleasant king walk for the white. For context, a king walk is just like when your opponent forces your king to keep coming farther and farther and farther out of the safeness of their territory. So for you to go into this as a white, you should really only be doing it if you know what you're doing. And we'll see what the line would be here. Bishop to f2 check, king to f2, knight to e4 check, king to f3. And that's just the king walk. And another line is bishop to g5, knight to e4, and bishop takes on d8. So that's just very simple. You get a queen out of that. Other options, or if you don't want to take the queen, I don't know why you wouldn't. Just say if you didn't, you have d takes e4, bishop takes f2, king to e2, bishop to g4 check, king takes f2, queen takes d1. You're kind of screwed. And then, and another option would be after bishop to d8, bishop takes on f2, king takes, and bishop to g4 is checkmate, indicated by the arrows. And now that's just an example on how the game could unfold. Knight to g4 is a temporary sacrifice, which then allows to gain a bishop pair. And here we have more alternate lines. There was just knight to g4, just an example of how the game could unfold from here. Knight to g4 is a temporary sacrifice which allows to gain the bishop pair, yada yada yada. We already had that above there. We have bishop takes on g4, queen to h4, that's a double attack on the pawn and the bishop. Kingside castle, bishop takes g4, queen to e1, queenside castle. Objectively, white should be better, but with the opposing side castles and the bishop pair, black will have some practical advantages. Continuing, bishop to e3, bishop to d6. This is the favorite line of the computer, but black can also try to trick white with some other ideas. You don't have to go for this as black, but if you want to keep more pieces on the board rather than going for g4, there's h5, probably the most common and ambitious move for black. Very tricky lines can arise from this position, like c3, bishop to b6. And the other final option is queen to d6, pawn to c3. c through d4 is a common idea to refute the Stafford. I'll explore this a bit further in later chapters, so again, if you want me to look at this further, just leave a comment in the comment section. And then you have bishop to b6, knight to d2. This protects the e4 pawn to play d4 and shuts down any ideas with the bishop. And I don't mean the opponent's bishop, I mean our bishop on c1. And if you get this as black, you have to castle queenside and try to play c5 to reactivate your dark squared bishop. Basically, if you end up getting stuck in this position, you just have to castle queenside and play c5 to make sure your dark squared bishop isn't just sitting alone and being useless. Okay, that's going to wrap it up for this video. Please, please, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you want to see me take this further with the other 23 chapters, this can become a little mini series. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!